Well, hello. In this video I'm going to take a look at this Thomas & Friends Take and Play spiral track piece. Quite a few people have contacted me and they're a bit puzzled in the way this piece plays out, and I think I understand why they're a bit puzzled, because initially when I first bought this I was puzzled as well. Looking back on the box artwork, I was looking for ideas on how this thing worked and what it joined up to, and it wasn't until I looked at the back I saw, well, there's the spiral and you can go along and you can join it onto other Take and Play sets, and there's this little curious piece of track work in the air, and we all know that this style of track doesn't do too well floating in the air. And in the grand scheme of things, yeah, you can put a piece of track there and it will float, but why don't you put an engine on there? Look what happens. I suppose you can have a little bit of fun doing that. Thomas, I don't think that's a very healthy position to be in. Well, maybe if we add another piece of track we can get a bit of ramp going, but remember the joins on this don't like floating in free air. Unfortunately, the track joiner at the top of the spiral has no plastic support underneath, so the piece of track which is put up here can so easily just fall through. So as a run down the hill spiral track, it's perfect, and Thomas can run off to his next adventure. It wasn't until I added some track parts from an old playset did I make any sense of the top of the spiral. And this old Take Along playset, which I purchased well before I was doing toy reviews on YouTube, has a piece in there which will turn that spiral track into something much more fun. Let's do it. Who out there remembers this bridge piece? It was a whole bunch of fun. And one trick I do is I use blue tack to keep pieces of track together, especially when there's nothing there to support them. And I'll come and put the brickwork here, noticing the blue tack again. And I'll come in and put the other piece of that bridge. So hopefully by adding that bridge from the old Take Along playset, I've turned this Take and Play spiral into something really useful. Okay, Thomas, show us your metal. So by adding just 3 pieces of plastic, we've got a ton more playability from that one spiral. Well, let's take away this bridge and let's put on some flexi track. I know from watching my son play, he really enjoys the flexi track. Let's see how it goes as to the spiral. Well, we're suffering a fair bit of track sag. Let's see how Thomas goes. Whoa! Let's ramp up the action and put a bit of a bend in the track. Okay, Thomas, you're feeling dangerous. We better get you back on your wheels or you'll lose all your water. Well, I hope this gives you some ideas if you've been struggling with the spiral track, as some people have reported to me. And in a way it needs just a few other bits of track to make it a very clever little piece.
And I dare say there's another question you'd be asking is, what if I had another spiral track, could I make like a giant spiral? So maybe it's a good time for me to explain the trouble I have in purchasing Thomas & Friends stock in Australia. At my local Kmart, it was only a couple of months ago, I made a video called Thomas Love, and there was quite a large amount of Thomas stock on the shelves which took up half the aisle. But these days I find that Thomas stock has been reduced to a tiny little section in this aisle. From memory, Chuggington disappeared about a year ago, and from what I can see, the Thomas & Friends stock is very close behind. So remember, we're looking at one of Australia's major shopping chains in the city of Sydney, and I've been to a couple of Kmart stores, and the area where they display the Thomas stock is exactly the same size. Sure, I would love to show you with a couple of spiral tracks stacked together, but sadly I can't find any in the shops. And Kmart is not alone in this ever-shrinking Thomas empire. And maybe it's worth me doing a video and showing you around all the shops I go to, then you'll start to appreciate my big dilemma in trying to find Thomas & Friends toys. I noticed sitting next to Thomas here is Dora the Explorer. Maybe I could set her a challenge to go and find where the rest of the Thomas stock is, and maybe she can find the Chuggers as well. What I find amazing in all this is the Thomas & Friends toys are some of the most popular toys with small children around the world. My young boy has been exposed to a lot of Thomas products. And sure, he's starting to move on to the Trackmaster style trains, but he's also moving on to other non-Thomas toys, and Hot Wheels would be a classic example. Mind you, underpinning all this is that all these toys come from the same company. So in the end, there are really no losers. And you're probably wondering, well, what if you wanted some wooden trains and you were shopping in Kmart? And what I should show you is what they have as a generic wooden train system, which is very inexpensive, and there seems to always be plenty of stock of it there. It was some time ago I did a big comparison between many brands of wooden train sets, and I think my biggest advice was you can go and buy these train sets as a track, but if you want some decent rolling stock and engines, you're better off sticking with the Thomas & Friends trains, and the wooden Chuggington if you can find them. Nevertheless, my son ended up picking up some of these very inexpensive wooden trains from Kmart. So maybe that's a sign he's not over trains yet. Well, there you go, that first spiral track was bought in the same Kmart. I went back to buy another one. I couldn't buy any more. Sorry for the additional tack onto this video, but I felt it was a very important thing to cover. And as always, thanks for watching and bye for now.